And we're back. It's episode 2. Our
Yeah.
episode 2. Welcome to another ad-free shows event. We are talking about the hit. May I be bold enough to say hit Netflix series Wrestlers. Last week we did a little dive into Al Snow's background as a trainer. I had to, knowing my background with him, I had to talk about the training. And we talked about episode 1 this week. We talk about episode 2 and 3. But most importantly, we're here with the man who is behind it all, Ohio Valley Wrestling. My trainer, my big brother, and the star of wrestlers, Al Snow. Al, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Meanie. How are you?
I'm upright.
Yeah, that's all we can ask sometimes.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I'm blown away by the reception, for the series Wrestlers. I got to be honest, I was really worried. I think we mentioned this last week about my concerns about that how it would be received and
Yeah.
everything. But I mean, we've gotten 4-star reviews from Variety, Forbes, um, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. We were featured in Time Magazine with a glowing review. Just a couple days ago, on the Today Show, they have a segment where they
Yes.
featured it, and the hostesses were really raving about it. I mean, so I'm ecstatic and just amazed and thrilled that it's getting the response that it's getting. And like we were talking about before going on the air, going live, that all that to Greg Whiteley and his crew. I mean, that's the real talent that's made this show what it is.
Yeah, man. I'm a documentary junkie, so I could watch a documentary on paint drying and be enthralled. And
Yeah,
but take our personal relationship out of it. This is one of my favorite docu series about wrestling. And it's right up there with the best of them
yeah,
because, and it's a credit to the producers. They get the good. The tale of a good documentary is they get both sides of a person. And we're
yeah,
going to touch on that in a little bit, but yeah, kudos on the Today Show, picking that up and talking about it. That's no easy get, so to speak.
yeah,
To d- I have a friend who worked in Hollywood for years, and he said just getting a TV show is a
yeah.
feat in itself, and the fact
Hmm.
that you guys have had that success so far is it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and we owe it, in large part to the wrestling community and embracing it and accepting it and getting behind it. And, you know, um, and I can't say thank you enough to everybody out there, all the wrestling fans and just fans in general. I mean, I just thank you so much that you're supporting it and helping to share it and spread the word and get other people interested in watching it. And, we're going to keep our fingers crossed and our toes and our testicles that,
In our eyes.
in our eyes, that maybe we can get a season 2. But
Yeah.
even if we only get a season 1, I'm thrilled with what's happened so far. I mean, it's just been incredible. So, here we are now talking about episode 2 and 3 and like I mentioned before we went on the air, like I've watched, of course, but I've done it because I wanted to try to be prepared for the show. I've watched 2 and 3 a couple of times, and like I can't like everything. I can't retain it all. I mean, there's so much in an episode to take in. You know what I mean? I mean, it's crazy to when you watch it.
In the words of Pee Wee Herman, I lived it, Dottie.
I lived it. I lived it, Dottie.
Don't need to watch it. I lived it,
No need
Dottie.
to. I've lived it, Dottie.
But I mean, talk about success. Beginning of episode 2, there
Yeah,
is a recap of your career up to that point. You're sitting there with the fanny pack kid, and they're
yeah,
talking about the current product, and they show your evolution of through WWE, back to ECW, back to WWE. And
yeah,
one of the best quotes, it was, you know, fame doesn't equal success.
No.
And
And I think a lot of people today, meaning I think a lot of people equate success with fame. You know, that the more famous you are, the more successful you are. You know what I mean? And that's not the case. I mean, you
yeah,
can be famous, you know, and not be
for the wrong
successful.
reasons.
You, well, and not just for the wrong reasons. You can just in general be famous. I remember this was years ago. You know, this was back when Rock of Love and you
Yeah.
know, which I loved that show because they were all train wrecks. And then, but my favorite was Flavor of Love, and because the prize was Flavor Flav, you know what I mean? And that was I wasn't gonna watch it, and then they were doing an OTF, an on the fly interview, you know, with one of the girls that got eliminated. She's all heartbroken, you know, and she's like, my parents were upset that I was coming on the show, but I told him he's out of prison now and he's caught up on his child support. So, you know, and I'm like, this is the prize. That's the prize, you
Yeah.
know, and you know, and the girls would get so torn up and brokenhearted because they were being cut from the show because they didn't get to win Flavor Flav, which I'm sure he's an awesome guy. He seems like a very,
Yeah.
honestly, a very intelligent, very talented guy. But I just found that fascinating. And
Here's your prize, another human.
another human. But I loved him so much. You were on the show for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What? How could you love anything in 2 weeks? So yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
But
So
but it goes back to the point where it's like you're talking about, you know, your career, and even point to my career where, you know, we just didn't. We've had longevity. I think longevity's more important to professional wrestling than the big boom and then kind of
what
this.
is to any career? I mean, you know, you can make $1 million in a year, but you're not really making any money. I know
No.
that sounds crazy to say,
Yeah.
but you know, when you know, a lot of people are enamored with just an amount, you know what I mean? And then they're also, I think, people are enamored with, uh, you know, and to take it back to the show, they're enamored with a destination. Hey, if I make this much money, I'm successful. Hey, if I make it to this particular job or this particular corporation, I'm successful. And what I was trying to say when I made that statement was that, you know, there's people are going to debate and you're going to have the trolls and the haters saying, well, you were nothing, you didn't do anything.
Right.
And I could have been, my career could have been totally different if I had not made a lot of the mistakes that I made. But I was still very, very successful. And I say that because I've gotten to do what I love to do for as long as I've gotten to do it. How many people get to say that?
Right.
You know, I've gotten to do what I chose to do and follow my passion. And so therefore I think I've been pretty successful. So
I believe if you're passionate,
mhm,
rise, passion and hard work rise above everything. You know,
yeah.
growing up severe asthmatic,
Mhm,
nobody thought I would do it, but I I talked it into it existence. Sometimes you can talk things into existence and
mhm.
visualize the work and put the work in. And I think just honing your craft and defining your craft will lead to eventually other people recognize it to where your peers recognize it, then the fans recognize it, and that's where the notoriety comes from. Instead of that instant fame, like instant mashed potatoes kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, but fame again is not success. You know,
No,
it just isn't. You
no,
know, and I struggle with that here with the talent in OVW because they're all so desperate. They all have they're all destination minded. You know, they don't. This generation really seems to not enjoy the walk. They only enjoy the destination. And I explained to them that once you get to the destination, you're probably not going to be as happy as you think you're going to be.
right,
You know, because the destination for every talent these days is, oh, I want to get signed with WWE. I get it. I don't blame you. It's the best platform in the world.
hmm
You know, you're going to have the most opportunity to make yourself a star. you're still going to have to make yourself a star. WWE doesn't make you a star. They just give you more of an opportunity to do it. But if you don't enjoy the journey to get there, and in your whole sum of your idea of success is maybe you being famous, then you're going to be incredibly disappointed.
Yeah.
It's not going to be satisfying.
And speaking to the pressure of people, not enjoying the destination. I mean, once you reach that destination, where do you go? There's only one place to go, and that's down, so to speak. I always talk about how, like, I enjoyed the journey. I enjoyed the car rides with you. I enjoyed going to the shows. I enjoyed the after show, talking about everything. I think today maybe there's a little bit too much distractions where not everybody's riding together. Not everybody's on airplanes instead of, cramming into a car and finding a place to go work and, sleeping in their car, and just the struggle,
Yeah.
There's something poetic about the struggle.
Well, I know that, in episode 2, they examine a lot of it. They're still trying to acquaint everybody with the characters, the personas and everything, so that the audience, and they do a great job. And, they really introduce a lot of people in episode 1, and then, they continue in episode 2 to introduce everybody as well.
Speaking of, we're talking, episode 2 deals with the pressures leading up to a pay-per-view, and people coming into your office or catching you out in the hall, hey, I got a great idea.
Pitching ideas. Yeah. And I think that, is a good illustration of the dichotomy of the wrestling business, because I always talk about it that, you can see it clearly on display, in that scene where Luke Curtis comes in, Eric Darkstorm, and it's all me. And rightfully so. It should be me. But the dichotomy is that it takes everybody to make a show, and it takes everybody to be successful in wrestling. But at the very same time that it takes everybody, it also takes somebody to stand out. And then you've got to go in the ring, and you've got to be attempting to make yourself stand out and be a star at the same time that maybe it's not your turn to be the star, and you've got to do the favor for the person you're in the ring with. Yeah. But, those two things are very funny because it's, they really, like Eric, I usually get that pitch, which is usually, okay, so I'm better than this guy and I'm better than all these guys, and, you should go with me. And, and then they all beat, I beat everybody, and then I win the title. And then, and then whenever I decide, well, maybe then I'll let that one person beat me. And then, but he'll just have to roll me up instead of like beat me, like beat me type of thing. And you're like, oh, we can't do that. That's not how it works. But I know that is in their minds. They have this image of, it just being totally focused 100% on them. And, they can't see how they've got to interact with everybody else to achieve that.
And ultimately, the cool part is you see everybody pitching themselves, barging in, pitching, but then you see Haley J talking about pitching an idea on how she could lose,
right?
And get her hair cut.
Yeah, and that that happens more often than not. Haley came up with suggestions, knowing what I wanted to do, and she came up with the suggestions for that match that allowed for the finish to be better and allowed her to get beat in the right way. And then she came to me with I'm thinking of cutting my hair, and why don't we try and do something out of it? And that was that's great. And here in OVW, I've really there are a lot that they're not all on the same page, but the majority are really on the whole, we're all in this together type of thing. And they do understand that, sometimes you can't always be the thing in the spotlight. Sometimes you have to take a step back to take 2 steps forward again, and, down the road. And then when you do take the step back, you've got to be willing to now give the favor to somebody else, and then the person who got the favor given to them by you knows that at some point in time they're going to have to return that favor back to you. And I've got to really say that the mindset and the attitude here in the locker room is very good in that regards. And that's, that as well as I do, that within the business, that's tough to cultivate,
Yeah.
But that scene with Haley coming and, literally going, hey, here's how I can make myself look dumb. I don't look cool.
Running into the post
And knocking herself out. And, here's how I can have my mom, carry me back out, which I then used in the angle that she had more resentment because her mother had forced her to get her hair cut, to basically honor her word to the agreement of the match, where she was trying to get away and get out of it. And nothing makes me happier than to see everybody on the same page and not just self-interested and only caring about, themselves instead of the show as a whole.
And I think that comes through in the fact that you have good locker room leadership with Cash Flow and Maria. I mean, are you a professional wrestler? Yes. Have you been one of the boys? Yes. But now you're a boss. So you need need a right-hand man and a right-hand woman to help police the locker room. And Cash Flow's message to the locker room, it meant a lot that they showed that, to where the guys are, you hear one guy talking and it's easy to tune them out, but everybody seemed to be paying attention to the words Cash Flow was talking about. And it seems like you have a good unit there.
We do. And, I can't, I can have a vision, I can have a direction, I can provide leadership, but the wrestling business has and always will be the wrestler's business. Like I've tried to impress that from day one on my partners. Matt Jones came in with the, belief that, they work for us. And I made it very clear. These people do not work for us. They work with us,
Yeah.
and the wrestling business has been and will always be the wrestler's business because they're the product, and that's what makes the wrestling business so unique, is that it very much is a mutual business relationship between the promoter and the wrestler. The promoter, providing direction, providing a vision, providing a platform, and then the wrestler providing the product that, enables us to have something to sell, which is them, and together, through that relationship, you make money. And, the wrestlers have to take care of themselves. They have to, you as the office, you can only do so much to supervise the locker room. It's at some point the locker room has to supervise itself. And, we've used over the years many different ways to do it. The boys have always, taken care of the boys, up into and including Wrestler's Court, which is, is without a question or a doubt, that completely belongs to the wrestlers. How many years in WWE we had Wrestler's Court, and no one from the office, no one from the production crew, no one other than wrestlers were allowed in that room. And that because it's Wrestler's Court, it's not done for anybody's entertainment. It's done in a kind of jokingly way, reinforce, hey, here are the rules of the locker room, and you're kind of getting out of hand, and we're doing this to smarten you up, kind of thing, in a fun, entertaining way.
And there seems to be that push and pull of Matt versus the locker room. And there's the owners meeting, Matt and Craig talk about creative versus profit, talk about leading up to the summer tour that they want to do.
But I think that's a misunderstanding. That's their ignorance, quite honestly. Not in a bad way. It's just the ignorance of the idea of it, because you have to have the creative to have the product to be able to go and be profitable. If you don't have the product, you can go and do, bought shows, which are terrific, and you'll make money in a short term. Absolutely. But if you don't have the product that then in turn motivates that audience that attended those bot shows to now want to attend another bot show. Or if you don't have the product on television, then no one's going to come to the bot show because they're not going to, they're not going to see it as an attraction and then want to show up and then increase attendance at the fair or festival, which motivates the fair or festival to buy the show in the first place as an actual attraction. You know,
Yeah.
it's the same process as when you have, certain musical artists that will play state fair. They go to state fairs and they play concerts. That they're there as an attraction to pull in people for the fair. So you buy a ticket to the fair, you get to go and see, Buster Scruggs, playing on,
Foghat.
Fog. You get to see Foghat or Led Zeppelin, or not Led Zeppelin, but Def Leppard.
Yeah.
And so you're like, we'll go see Def Leppard. We'll go to the fair. We'll go see Def Leppard. Well, now the fairs use Def Leppard to bring you in, buy an attendance, to the fair, and then now you also are you're gonna buy concessions. You might go on the rides, and then now they can that crowd, the larger crowd, helps them to charge more for those concessions areas, for the the attractions, etc., to rent that space, and they make their money. And then and the Def Leppard being the attraction, pulling more of an attendance in helped. So they use wrestling in that manner. Well, if you don't have the TV to basically create that product, it's not an attraction in and of itself, and therefore it doesn't motivate more of a attendance to the fair. Thus, it doesn't motivate the fair to want to now pay the money to have it back next year.
Ultimately, throughout the history of the business, the TV has been the commercial. It's been a commercial for people to come out to see the live events.
That's what, and Vince Russo and I argue about this all the time.
Bro.
Hi,
Vince. I love you.
Wrestling on TV is not a television show. Wrestling on TV is a commercial. It's a 1 or a 2 hour commercial to sell your product, and your product are the wrestlers. A wrestling match in any format is not a wrestling match. And that's the one thing that all of the talent out there never understand. A wrestling match is not a wrestling match. A wrestling match is a commercial to sell your product, which is you, to motivate more of an audience to want to see that product and interact with it. Whether it be on a live event, whether it be on TV, whether it be on pay-per-view, that is a commercial to sell your product.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's I mean, and you're always trying different things like,
yeah.
I mean, kudos to you for trying to do a cinematic match. And
well, we've done several of those here.
But that's awesome.
We've not done one. We've done numerous ones, and they're, granted the production's not going to be on the same level as WWE, or AEW, but they're okay. They pass. I mean, and we do a lot with a little, and it takes a lot of work and takes a lot of time, to I think is it episode 2 or 3 that they start going into the date with Aaron Greider and Freya.
That's episode 3. Yeah, we're
3. Okay. Yeah. But while we're on topic, I mean, just something like that, arranging a restaurant and, wrangling the talent and then laying it all out and piecing it together and going out there from, and this is a testament to the wrestlers, like that night that, we did the cinematic match on episode 2, all those people have regular jobs and, they get up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, they go to work, and then they come meet me. I'm out there at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and they come out there and meet me and Daniel, the one camera guy, and, we do lighting, we do sound, we do camera together. And then I'm laying the whole thing out as to what people do and who does it. And, we don't get out of there until 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was so hot that night. I mean, it was murderously hot, and we were all just sweating, and everybody hung in there with us, and that's a testament to the wrestlers' commitment and their belief in what I'm trying to do, and I can't thank them enough, because we were out there busting our ass till 3 o'clock in the morning, and that was after they had probably already went to a regular job and worked 8 or 10 hours, and then are
And
out there.
they had to go back to that job that they just left.
Yeah, the very next day, they had to go back to that job the very next day, and it was, it's not on the weekend either. It's like on a Monday or a Tuesday or, a Wednesday that I'm filming this stuff. Because a lot of times I'm using it on the TV show that Thursday, or I'm going to use it that weekend for the pay-per-view on that Saturday, and the turnaround's not very long at all. So, like Daniel, who's editing this, stays up sometimes till, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, putting it all together. So
Daniel, does he work with Brian?
Daniel is like, he does everything. Daniel is, as far as technical stuff, he takes care of cameras, lighting, sound. He edits, he puts post-production wise for a lot of the networks that we deal with. He post-produces shows, gets them sent out. If I now have AJ McKay, who's a professional voiceover and radio guy. He does a lot of, like, you hear trailers for movies and commercials.
He
does that. Yes, he does that. And he now is kind of taken over where, like, every week I do a recap from the week before, so an audience can understand what's happening, if they missed last week. And then we have we have sponsored 30-second spots of 3 of them throughout the show. He does those, and puts these little packages together. The package you saw for prior to the opening of the pay-per-views, he does those,
Wow.
And he's, I'm really lucky because I've got some amazing people like Brian and Steve came out of nowhere and have just become such a part of the crew. Tommy Kent, who is our lighting and sound guy, he's a guy that's been doing lighting and staging in the Louisville area for 40 years and comes in and does things very much as a favor for me. Daniel's got so much experience as far as the technical side of things, and literally every week before we go on the air, and I think you saw it, where the cable went bad and we didn't have a monitor, and that stuff happens every week. I mean, every single week we have something because
I could tell on your face.
Oh, because we have old equipment, everything. The minute I bought the company, like, the brand new canvas, the minute I buy the company, it rips right in the middle on TV. Oh, well, we've got another canvas, never been on the ring. Put it on the ring, next week rips. We go take, coming up on our 1000th episode, like 3 months into buying the company, going to take the ring down to 4th Street Live and, downtown Louisville and do this amazing, live television production, we're going to broadcast live from, remotely from, 4th Street, big, massive show. We drew about close to 3,000 people. Both times that we did it 2 times. On the way, ring truck blows up. And this is months in, and it has been that ever since, where it's just been, you've got cameras and the camera batteries go bad, and this goes bad and that goes bad, and we're constantly putting together things with baling wire, bubble gum, and duct tape to make things work, because we just, it's not about losing money. It's about, we just never had solid resources right out of the gate to, get us rolling and up with momentum. But somehow we do it. Somehow we keep going, and somehow we keep, producing. And I dare say we produce good TV, and people do watch it. Contrary to statements that are made, people do watch it. I have it on good authority that, like, from the Nielsen ratings, because Louisville, Kentucky, in and of itself, is the 49th largest television market in the United States.
Okay.
That's pretty remarkable,
Yeah.
We get a half a share on a Thursday night, at least half a share, which means We literally do about 80,000 homes just in that WBNA broadcast area. You know, that's pretty significant. I mean, it's not a public access channel, and yeah, it's a religious network, you know, religious channel, but you know, but people watch it because they watch OVW, you know, and they're very motivated. I mean, you know, if the general manager will tell you that if if that show doesn't air on Thursday, if they have problems, they get phone calls, like 12, 15 phone calls, and in the television industry, they always equate one phone call to there's at least X amount of thousands, depending on the viewing area, that have the same opinion.
Yeah.
You know, so if they get 12 complaints, that's thousands of people that are upset that that show's not on the air. You know, so regardless of whether people want to try and minimize it or not, it does get a significant audience, and not just here locally. It does around, you know, in Fight TV, I know, you know, we do significant numbers because Mike Weber is constantly pursuing me to try and put it on, you know, behind the paywall, you know, because of the numbers that it draws. And that was prior to the wrestlers being on the air. Now with wrestlers being on Netflix, I'm sure the numbers on Fight are going to go even further through the roof on a weekly basis.
That's awesome. I was watching that, and they said in the show that you're on 4 local channels.
We're on regionally. We're on one, you know, Louisville, which we've been on the longest, and then one in Lexington, one in Harlan, and one in Bowling Green. And you know, so regionally, we have a pretty good, you know, good reach, and we are still just a regional operation. I mean, it's not like, you know, this belief that we're going to go take on the big two. I mean, we're, you know, I'd like to be an alternative, but you know, even WWE it's a challenge for WWE to run national live events. And the reason it is because it costs so much. The overhead is so high, in that WWE has to pull in such a large audience for those live events to potentially even have a chance of making money. That there has been a big push for years in the WWE offices to do away with live events. And Vince doesn't want to do away with them because intrinsically they are a part of what makes the wrestling business run. You know, the wrestling business is no different than the music business. Artists put their music on a radio for free so that you will now be interested in the music. It's a commercial to sell the artist and the music, so that then the artist doesn't make any money until real money until they go out on tour. Even the record companies don't make money until they go out on tour. And once they go out on tour and you attend the concert, that's really ultimately what motivates you to want to buy the music, buy the merchandise, etc. And that's where they really make their money. The live event experience is what drives the interest even further in the artist and the music that they make. The same goes with wrestling. The live event experience is what drives an audience to want to be more interested to watch it on television. And then the television ratings are what help to drive the live event business, that drives the merchandise, that drives the pay-per-view buys, etc. It's a big circle. You know, you can't have, and if you don't have TV, your ability to draw an audience at said live events is extremely curtailed, because the audience doesn't get to know and respond to and connect with the product, which are your wrestlers, because you don't have a commercial to run.
And speaking of, you know, tours, beginning of episode 3, which we're going to dive into now, episode 3, you do the Poke Salad Festival.
Poke Salad, yeah,
which
yeah.
I always thought it's POKESALLET. I thought it was Poke Salad.
Yeah, Poke Salad. No, it's not. It's Poke Salad. Yeah.
And
yeah,
it can kill you.
It can if it's not cooked right. But that, I mean, everybody kind of makes a face about that. But think about it, you know, Japanese people, you know, how many people go to Japanese restaurants, pay thousands of dollars for blowfish? And literally, if it's not prepared correctly, it could kill you. You know what I mean?
It's like, how many people perished, you know,
figuring that out.
It's like the people who tried preparation A through G.
Yeah, and they were like, it just didn't work. But H, that hits the spot. Right on.
H is
Yeah.
A-OK.
And you know, that Poke Salad Festival, I mean, it's an annual festival and that's a bot show. You know what I mean? That
Mm.
and you know, those bot shows are awesome and the festivals are awesome because the main attraction, and I even tell the wrestlers this when they're performing. No one came to that Poke Salad Festival and went, "Oh, there's wrestling here. Oh, by the way, there's a festival."
Right.
You understand? They came, there was a festival, and oh, by the way, there's wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, and the same goes when we go do fairs and we're an added attraction. And
Yeah.
that's why the fair or the festival pays for us. So, you know, of course, we're going to have a huge audience because there's a huge captive audience already there that's bought a ticket, you know, is attending the festival or the fair. And now we're like, oh, well, by the way, since I'm here, wrestling's going on. Let me check that out too. You know, and they're great vehicles because you get paid for the show. You don't have to worry about, you know, overhead or expenses so much. Not you do, you still have to worry, but you know that you're going to make money and you're going to come out with a profit as long as you mitigate expenses. But it's also a great way to grow the audience because a lot of casual fans will be attending that festival and go, "Oh, that's OVW. What the hell is that?" And then they go and they have an experience. And again, the live event then translates into them wanting to watch it on a weekly basis.
Now,
You know,
since the Poke Salad event, you do that once a year.
it's a once a year festival. Yes.
So my pitch for the next Poke Salad
Yeah. Yeah.
convention or fair, you
Yeah.
have to have a character named Poke Salad Annie.
Yeah. Poke Salad Annie. Yeah. Yeah.
Come out to the Elvis song, Poke
Yeah.
Salad
Salad
Annie.
Annie. Yeah.
I don't know. That's
Yeah.
my 2 cents. But
But it was, you know, it's those things are amazing because um, audiences that attend those things are already primed and they're already looking for a fun experience and you
yeah,
know and then oh by the way there's wrestling too. And I even, you know, I tell the wrestlers that I'm like, look, don't go out there and try to have your WrestleMania moment. You know what I mean? That these people aren't here for a WrestleMania moment. They came to a fair and oh by the way there's wrestling too, let's go check it out while we're here. Now go and just entertain them, have fun, you know, and for a learning experience, those types of shows are the best because you can go experiment. You can, you know, no one's going to be there going, you know, in the crowd going, that's a 3-star match. That's not a 5-star
no one's
match.
sitting there with a stopwatch.
Yeah, no one's sitting there with a stopwatch going, well, they went to 8 minutes and 62 seconds. You know, of a 10-minute match. That work rate was a little lax. You
What is
know,
work rate?
they could have, I have no idea. None.
What's
No,
the mechanical breakdown of a work rate?
meaning I have no clue because the term work is to make someone believe a lie, a con, a sham, something that's not honest. The rate is that the speed that you do that you
Yeah,
achieve it, the number of lies per hour you tell. I don't know. I have no idea.
yeah.
But you know, you're not going to have anybody there. They're not going to send in a report to a newsletter. You know, the internet's not going to the next day is going to go, oh, they, you know, so and so wrestled, so worked so and they were lazy and didn't take any bumps. They're just going to go and be entertained. You
Have
know,
fun.
yeah, and just go out there and see what works. You know, for you, they're great. They're a great learning place.
Which speaking of fun, which brings up another point.
Mhm.
Did the baby pageant outdraw your show that night?
No, well, it did. It had a bigger arena than we did. It did. I at first, honest to God, I thought it was a livestock show over there, you know, and then I went over to you know, see what it was. And I'm like, oh my God, what, have a baby pageant? How do you determine what baby is prettier than the other baby? I mean, they're all attractive. You know why they make them attractive? So you don't kill them. I've had 6 kids. I mean, I know I would, you know, let's be honest, every parent thinking about wanting to hug them until they pop their back and make them poop their pants. So, you know, you just go, oh, come here, I love you so much, and you just hear, you know. Um, but I was
That was
like,
me this morning. That was me this
do they
morning.
have like an evening gown competition? Do they have a talent competition with the one that can walk the furthest with help? I don't know. I don't get it.
Who has the
But it
false
was
diaper?
Yeah, it was fascinating to watch.
Put him
I
on the
was
stand.
gonna get I was gonna get hot if the babies outdrew us, but they had a bigger building, so we still had a full house, but over in the other building that was hot and sweaty, and the babies are out there just parading around.
Kind of
So
reminds me of the movie Spinal Tap, where it's like Spinal Tap and Puppet Show.
yeah, yeah. OVW and baby pageant. You
Yeah.
know,
Can you
hey, and that's a good. That proves my point about these fairs. It's a fair, you know what I mean? And oh, by the way, there's a baby pageant and OVW wrestling. You know,
Hey,
so
there's a crisp George Washington in here if you put
yeah,
Ohio Valley above the baby pageant.
the baby pageant. I dare you.
Yeah, let's get that rub.
What?
In a lot of
Yeah,
ways,
hey, this year we had the bigger building. Baby pageant pushed over to the other building. We knocked them
scram.
out. Scram, kids.
And
Hit
then
the
they literally
bricks.
had boo-boo faces.
Oh yeah, I mean they do that all the time. So
Then the episode goes on and we see Matt Jones goes on a date.
yeah,
Which in a lot
I'll
of
let you
ways,
comment on that.
eh, eh, yeah, in a lot of ways, it's kind of a tell to where he's, telling us that I own this wrestling thing. You know,
Mm,
I own it. It's kind of like, does he buy the wrestling thing to be able to tell people he owns a wrestling business, or does he own a wrestling business to be able to genuinely try to help OVW in a lot of ways? So is it a vanity project? Yeah, or is he really invested?
yeah, I don't know. The jury's still out. You know what I mean? I think no matter what, um, no one's going to look at the wrestling business the way that we do. The
Right.
people that are in it. You know, I just don't think people can. You know, because it's not going to mean the same to anyone outside of it as it does to the very people that are in it. You know, because you invest so much of yourself in it.
Mhm.
And you really have to, anything that you're passionate about, not just wrestling, but anything that you're passionate about. I think that's one of the things, especially early on, you see in episode 1, 2, and 3, is just how much everyone here in OVW and just in general in the wrestling business invest themselves in it, you know, to be able to pursue it and even to some modicum be successful,
Yeah.
you know, which, you know, I think there's a quote that I make when we, you know, you were talking about, you know, we talked about it earlier about success, you know, people equating fame for success. And I think that, you know, the especially 1, 2, and 3 illustrate that success can be found in just doing what you're passionate doing and enjoying, you know. So I don't think people outside that come into the business, I don't think that they're ever going to see or view it the same way as we do. I think that, you know, at the end of the day, regardless of what they might want to say or believe, you know, it still is for them. It's something, you know, that, oh, I've been a fan and I really want to do this type of thing. You know, I want to be a part of it in some manner. And so it is a bit of a vanity project. You know what I mean? It's not a pursuit that, you know, it eats you alive to where you feel like that it's something you have to do. So, um, uh, and I think that going out on the date and awkwardly bringing it up about owning a wrestling company, I mean, that was a kind of a weird conversation, but hey, I mean, whatever breaks the ice.
There's a two sides to Matt Jones. There's
Mm-hmm.
a side though I genuinely like him as a person. He
Mm-hmm.
at the poke salad festival, he brings his mother. Me being a
Mm-hmm.
mama's boy and a grandmama's boy, I can
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that and going to watch the show. And then,
Sure.
but then, you see him talking about, oh, I own this wrestling company. Uh, but then he also goes on to talk about, there's a situation where the people are talking about getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, I didn't book. I'm the owner of the company, but then he tells the one dude, I didn't book you for this. You know, and he's telling all these people, all the wrestlers, clear your schedules. We're going on this 30-day tour. But then when a money issue comes up, well, I didn't book you with that. It's like that. There's the part where I kind of have a problem with it. It's like, and the way sometimes the way he talks to the boys isn't conducive to making people want to do what you need them to do. Sometimes you're not managing people, you're managing personalities.
Right.
And you got to approach every human being differently, and I think he's struggling to find that balance.
Yeah, and he's doing better. He's doing better. He's still struggling.
Well, this was a year and a half ago too, so yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he has been trying harder, but he's still struggling to find his way. And I think to a point too, in his defense, like he comes from a world where he was the talent. You know what I mean? He was the product.
Yeah.
And as a result, a lot of people are going to acquiesce to him. He's gonna be used to getting his way and being able to kind of throw his weight around. And because let's face it, there are wrestlers that behave in that manner when they realize,
of course, yes,
when they realize, oh, hey, wait a minute, I'm the thing that's driving the bus now. You watch them change. And where they were kind of humble and a little demure, and then they start kind of stiffening up, and they start, you don't talk to me, I talk to you, you don't talk to me, type of thing, that attitude, because they know they're the product, and then coming from that world in radio, he was the product, he was the show. Well, he's not the show here. And I think that's taking a lot of time for him to adapt to that and to understand that, and then to accept it, to realize that you can't speak and behave with impunity, and to people, and that, especially that in the wrestling business, because there are a lot of sensitive egos in the wrestling business.
Yes.
And you're not going to, and thank God he wasn't here, during, back in the days with the WWE, when there were a lot of even higher edged, athletes that were here. God help him, if he'd have tried to, deal with or speak with Brock or Randy Orton or, one of those guys like that, they would have just straight up just beat him up or pinned him up against the wall, and we had a conversation like that, where I told him, I gave him advice. I said, you can't do that with these people, because one of them's gonna beat you up. And lo and behold, Eric Darkstorm, almost did at one point. So, and I think those lessons are hard lessons to learn, but he seems to be taking them in, and we'll find our way. It's still a work in progress. So
going back to you, and you brought up a great point that didn't even dawn on me. At one point he was the product.
Yeah, he was. And on radio, he still is he's the product. So he gets to, that's his world. So he gets to behave any way he wants.
Yeah.
And then he came into this world thinking he was still that guy, that product in this world, and he ain't, and that takes a lot, it's going to take a lot of, it's going to take time, and it's going to take some realization and personal introspection to go, hey, wait, I need to dial this shit back, because it ain't working.
It also makes me think that, they show him, he goes, I have a radio show. I have a restaurant. I had a website. Everything he said he's done, he's been successful at, but it seems like pro wrestling is yet this dragon he's yet to slay, so to speak, professional.
Because it's not, wrestling is not a I, me.
Mm-hmm.
It is from the performer standpoint, but from the promoter standpoint, it's a we. It is never I, me. And that it don't work. My job is to do everything I can to build a platform for someone else, not me, to build it for someone else. And whereas with the world he came from, it was to build everything for him.
Yeah.
Well, now this is, being a performer, it's me. now I have to, it's we, and it's me trying to make the biggest platform for everyone else, to make everyone else look like a star, to put everyone else first, for me to, do as much as I can for my talent to enable them to have the best chance of success, because if they don't succeed, I don't succeed.
Right.
So my fate is directly tied to them. So now I have to be more forgiving. I have to be more patient. I have to be more, especially these days, because a lot of talent don't know or haven't been taught the skills to go out there and properly make themselves a star,
Right.
So, but at the end of the day, no matter what anyone wants to say, if this OVW succeeds, we have succeeded. Okay. But the brutal truth of the matter is that if OVW fails, I failed. Period. There will be no one else's name that will get dragged through the mud. No one else will get shit on. No one else will take the heat. Nobody will be on social media burying the talent. No one will be on social media burying any business partners that are in the business, because I've got several. It's not just Craig and Matt. It's Jeff Tublin. It's Larry Benz. It's Joe Reeves. It's Chad Miller. They've all been fantastic and very supportive. It won't be any of them. It'll be Al Snow led to the demise of his booking, his business approach. He was bad with money. He was this, he was that. No one else, just me. And I have to accept that and still it's all about us, and we. And it's not about, I'm building the platform and I'm doing this for I, me.
And it's, you don't have the luxury like Matt did in episode 3, where he leaves the show. He just,
yeah, I can't leave the show, and I can't, I'm here every day. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's exactly what it is. And I know that, and I accept that's what I have to dedicate to it, to give it the best chance of success, which now in turn gives the wrestlers the best chance of success, which in turn now means I succeed.
yeah.
So, and that's really what, and I think for Matt, that's a lot of his problem, is that he came from a world, he was the product. He was allowed to call the shots and behave, act with impunity, because he, very disrespectful in a lot of cases, and with his behavior and thing, which we both know in the wrestling business is not tolerated,
Yeah.
And for very good reason. It's easy to get lost in your, because we're basically method actors. So it's easy to believe your own publicity and think that you're bigger than the show, and nobody is bigger than the show. And that's kind of the way he came across, was like he was bigger than the show. Me, I. And it's we, and nobody's bigger than the show. But, and he's coming to grips with that, I think.
And when it comes to the me, I, you see a lot of the talent that work for you and bust their ass for you. They have, and like we said with the cinematic match earlier, they have day jobs.
Yeah. And, I'm asking these people, and again, let's not forget, each and every one of those men and women are going in that ring, and physically they're sacrificing themselves.
Yeah. Yep.
And they're not doing it for some altruistic reason. I mean, that's horse shit. They're doing it for themselves, but they're doing it for the entertainment of the audience, but they're doing it so that they can be someone and be special in that moment, and then that they can somehow build it to where they can be on a bigger platform and be even someone more and be even special for a moment. So that, they're not doing it for any altruistic reasons. None of us are, but at least I try to be honest about it,
Yeah.
and I accept my role, which is it's no longer I, me, it's now we, and I'm fine with that,
But there's also that high of performing that's hard
absolutely,
to explain.
that
It's
adrenaline
hard to,
rush.
yeah. It's hard to explain,
That,
especially when wrestling is done right,
oh,
and the crowd at the right
and
moment.
you'll see on the show, you experience those moments here on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You do. And that's what, ultimately, and it takes so much time. It's not, there are lots of mistakes that are made here, but the biggest thing is it just takes time to build an audience. you know, and so much more nowadays because here's the biggest challenge I have on this level, okay, for OVW. And really, we didn't really get into this in the documentary. The biggest challenge I have is that I have so much, and I mean so much that's out there as far as these independent wrestling companies that their product, their presentation, the delivery of the talent is so bad.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that like I'm in competition with them. I'm just stating a fact. People that go in there with little or no investment in themselves, they don't even look like they know a guy named Jim, let alone drive past one or go in one.
Yeah.
And they now go out there and an audience that's bought a ticket, they don't know OVW from ICW, from MCW, from MLW, from KCW to, I can go down the list, put 3 letters together with a W. They don't know it. The only thing they know is WWE. WWE is an iconic brand. It's like Band-Aid, Q-Tip, Harley Davidson. It's a description of wrestling, okay? And when they show up, they want that same product or similar to it that they can live vicariously through when they go through the doors. What they get is nowhere near even close to that. And so now when OVW shows up, well, they don't know it from the other company, and they think they're going to get the same subpar experience.
Yeah.
You know, and so and now it takes so much longer for you. And the same goes with your television ratings and et cetera, because they've tuned into other ones before and they go, what the hell is this? I ain't watching this, you know, because it doesn't come close. It doesn't in any way come close in shape or form to WWE's presentation. Not saying that ours does either, because it doesn't. But at least we look professional. We come across as professional, and the largest portion of our roster look like they make their living when they walk through that curtain in a professional, competitive combat situation. That you, just by visually looking at them, can go, that guy can kick somebody's ass.
Yeah. It's the airport test. Can a guy walk through the airport and people are like, who the hell is that?
And that's taken years for me to build that roster up cosmetically and aesthetically. It's taken years for me to educate the performers on what to really sell an audience, to give them a consistent experience that wants them to come back over and over again, not just to the live event, but also to tune in every week and watch it on TV. You know, that takes a long time, and it's an arduous road to do, you know, and it takes a lot of investment. And most people think all they got to do if they're outside the wrestling business is just show up, wave a magic wand, scream ish kabibble, and suddenly an audience will magically appear. I hate to tell everyone, this is not Field of Dreams.
I was just about to say it.
You don't just build it and they will come, because they don't come walking out of a cornfield.
If you book it, they will come.
If you book it, they will come. It doesn't work that way, you know, and I wish it did, but it takes a tremendous amount of work and dedication. WWE was not WWE overnight.
No.
You know, WWF was not WWF overnight. You know, it was what it was because of the dedication and the vision and the passion of one guy, Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Period. You know, and that is still what's driving that bus, regardless of what people want to think or believe or like. Nobody cares about your opinion because it's just your opinion and it's worth what it costs to get, which is nothing. The reality of the fact is that company and wrestling as it exists today is all on the back of one man, and his name is Vince McMahon. That's it.
Yeah. And people forget, like WWE, like you see WrestleMania 3, and then a couple of years later, business has become cyclical, and they were running high school gyms again, you know. And
yeah, they were running high school gyms during the time of WrestleMania 3. Don't let them lie to you.
Oh, okay.
They were running high school gyms all through the 80s. They were doing A, B, and C towns, and they were running every building they could run. And there's nothing wrong with running a high school gym. I don't know why that's an insult. It's nothing but a building with 4 walls and a bunch of lights and seats. Who cares what it is? As long as it's a venue and you can fill it, That's what matters. But we took it out of the armories and the. No, you didn't. You were running those too back then. You know, now they can't. And the reason they can't is they've sold everybody on the idea that they're too big. They're too Hollywood to run the high school gym now. You know, if they could go get a high school gym that seated 5,000 people for a 1/3 the price of an arena, do you honestly think they wouldn't take it and then fill that 5,000 seat gym at a 1/3 the cost, as opposed to spending $25,000 for a day to rent the Yum Center in Louisville? They go run the local high school that seats 7,000 people because they're only going to draw 5, and they fill the fucking high school gym, and it only costs them $2,000. You think they're going to go, no, that doesn't fit the image. We need to go run the other one for $25,000 more. Who would do that? I mean, that's ridiculous. Of course, they painted themselves in the corner image-wise that they can't do anything but run those types of arenas. So,
right. But as we start to wind down on episode 3, there seems to be this another meeting, which leads to a confrontation, but not a confrontation, but a situation between Amon and Matt Jones, where and it's another part that kind of humanizes. He's not humanized, but it makes me sympathize with Matt, that like he has anxiety issues, and Amon, if I'm saying that right, approaches him saying, "Hey, I know people who can help." And
well, Amon, just for a little background, Amon is he makes his living. He's a professional therapist.
Okay.
And works with patients all day. During his day job, he literally works with patients and in therapy and psychoanalysts and all of that. He does all of that all day long. That's his job. And then he comes out as a demon. Is kind of crazy, and that he's like this evil monster. When he actually is a very calm, very well kept, therapist. So during the day, and at that time when it was being filmed, Matt was having a little bit of a meltdown, and he was. What they didn't show was him yelling at our merch girl Becky because of the tables had been moved, but the tables he had came by and told everybody to move them outside because there was enough space. And then the owner of the venue came by and told him to move everything in because he didn't want them outside because it was going to start to rain. He didn't want the audience, the people standing outside in the rain trying to buy the merch. So when they moved him back in, Matt didn't know that, came by, and then, because he was amped up and wired up, started yelling at Becky, and Becky started crying, and that was why Amon had stepped in and was like, "Hey, just calm down. You can't talk to people that way," which was I think Matt needed to hear that, and I think he needed to see.
I think they showed a small part of that where he's like,
maybe did it,
or Amon's saying you gotta,
and you need to dial it back, and I think he, I think for Matt it's good because I think he needs people to stand up to him, and to in the proper way, and to say, "Hey, that's not acceptable. You can't speak to people that way." Because I think prior to this experience, I think because again, like we talked about, him being the product, on the radio station, he was allowed to be able to behave any way he wanted because he was what was selling the sponsorships or the advertising or whatever for the radio station. And we've seen it, like I said before, in wrestling, when you become the thing that sells tickets, a lot of people turn into gorillas, in backstage and with the fellow wrestlers, and they start manifesting that, and that's why it's so important. The rules of the business in wrestling was a way to keep people grounded and not allow and make them realize they're not bigger than everyone else, or they're not bigger than the show, and that they need everybody else. Because in the wrestling business, you don't accomplish or do anything on your own in this business, in any manner. So you've always got to keep yourself grateful, humble, and to a degree, but yet still believing in yourself, and and thinking that you're the biggest star, but at the same time realizing that without the help and assistance of everyone else, you won't be, and I think that was a good, I think that was what started down, maybe helped start Matt down the path of, and I hope that these experiences that you see Matt going through will help him in his own personal life, maybe, and maybe help him mature and develop and, have better relationships with everyone, not just within the wrestling business,
There's the situation between him and Amon. I always say there's three sides to a story. One side, this side, in the middle somewhere is the truth.
Yeah.
And then you see Matt come into the meeting and talk about the conversation that you see Amon tell his side of the story, and then Matt tells a totally different side. Well, he said this, that, and the other thing, and maybe covering up the fact that, I don't need help and stuff. But then he has a medical situation right there. I don't know if it was
he had a seizure.
He had a seizure, and that really hit home a lot, just because it made me. I felt so bad in that situation. I felt bad for him for all the times where he's like, "Oh, I'm the owner. Oh, but I didn't book you. Hey, move from Nashville. Did you sign a lease? Come here, join us." And he wants all these people. But then you see the human side where, maybe the pressure kind of gets to him in the moment and he has a seizure, and it was hard to watch. My heart went out to him in that moment.
Well, it was hard to experience, and
Yeah, you were right there, man.
Yeah, no matter how much angst or that's between you and someone else, when you see somebody, experiencing a situation, you immediately feel terrible for them and you feel sympathetic, and you want to do your best to try to take care of them, but in those situations you just don't know what to do or what not to do, and you're just trying to take care, cool him down. We were trying to put ice on him and do whatever we could to take care of him, and then determine whether or not we needed additional assistance, and if we needed to call emergency services. It's crazy to be in that moment, but you're really, at the end of the day, your only concern is about their well-being, their overall well-being, that they're okay. So, and it gets scary for sure.
And that's what I think draws people to the show Wrestlers. It shows that no matter what, we're all humans.
Mm-hmm.
It's the humanity of the people behind the scenes on Wrestlers, the people behind the scenes, from Matt down to the Taker to you booking. I think that's what draws people into the show. They should, and a great shout out to the promoters. I mean, the producers. They've done a great job of showing that balance of the humanity of the show. And
I think that's the real hook for wrestlers, is the humanity. The humanity of the wrestlers themselves, the humanity, and even though there's clashes of personalities, we're all
peekaboo. Hello, Al.
I literally hit do not disturb on the phone so that won't happen, and it still does. Calls still come in. I don't understand. It's Thursday. It's TV day, so
and hence why we're going to wrap up in a few moments here. I don't want to keep you. I know you're busy.
But I think with wrestlers, the clashes of personalities, the clashes of egos, the wrestlers themselves don't get along. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've had lots of, that just is part of it. And you've got a lot of high functioning, eclectic, eccentric, narcissistic, egotistical, insecure performers and owners and bookers that all together, and yet we find a way to make it happen, make it work, to make it happen.
And you're bringing together people from different backgrounds. I mean, you got to have a guy from Scotland talking to a guy from India, and it's human experiences that make endear you to these performers.
Yeah, to these people. Yeah, and they're and I think and relate, watching someone come to grips with the dreams that they want to achieve and the realities of what it is they have to do to get them.
Yeah.
You know,
And there's
and
got to
I'm
be that
watching
point
them
where you
go through that journey.
realize, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your toes there.
Mm.
There's got to be that point where you go from, this is my dream, to this is, where I, this is going from my full-time job to, well, I have to, get a job and kind of just work the weekends or something like that. But I think we all struggle with that reality. I think a lot of wrestlers struggle with that, where they think, I'm just waiting for the next big booking, and that's going to.
Yeah. And
I
it's
see it all the
coming.
time.
I mentioned about Maria thinking that she still has one last run. But I said we all think we do.
Yeah.
Because we all do. No matter how old you get, how many guys do we see at the conventions, and they're all thinking, and you can tell they're all like, well, if I just get one more, I could go in there and I could draw money. You're like, no, you couldn't. No, that day's
Like a
past.
slot machine, one more pull.
One more pull. If I just one more pull, I can hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
And that's the epitome of wrestling. It's just that hope. It's what keeps us going. Is if I just pull that arm one more time, I'm going to get the jackpot. And everyone on Wrestlers, you can see them. That's what they're doing. They're just taking one more pull. Hit it this time. I can get the big one.
And speaking of that, that was episode 3. Thank you for joining us here on Ad Free Shows for episode 2 and episode 3 recap. Al, I appreciate you being here with me on this Thursday. I know you have to run right from here to television, but
Gotta
the
go to
best thing
TV,
is
yeah.
I now get to watch episode 4 and 5 because I have been punishing myself by not skipping ahead.
Good.
But
All right,
dude,
we'll
I
go over
love
that
you.
next week. I love you
Yeah, I
too.
love you dearly. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the show. I know where you've come from, and I'm happy to see where you're at and where you continue to go and lead these young, impressionable, and some seasoned, impressionable minds. But just for everybody watching at home, and just in case you don't know, where can we follow you? Where can we follow OVW?
Well, you can see Wrestlers on Netflix. It's all of the episodes are out right now on Netflix. If you're interested in OVW, you can go to ovwrestling.com. We air every Thursday night live from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on Fight. That'll be probably the easiest way to access it around the country and around the world. If you are interested in becoming a wrestler, you can go to ovwacademy.com, where we have our training program. We're the only accredited by the Secretary of Education as a trade school for professional wrestling, sports entertainment, and broadcasting in the world. If you are wanting to follow me on social media, you can go at The Real Al Snow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. If you want to know more about me, I have my autobiography out, and it's called Self-Help and Life Lessons from the Bizarre Wrestling Career of Al Snow, and it's been pretty bizarre. And that is on Amazon.com. You can go check that out. So,
and I thank you. For those interested in me, I have a podcast, Mind the Meanie, which drops every Monday morning, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. So, like to support the Blue Meanie, go to ProWrestlingTees.com/Blue Meanie. Get yourself a little Van Halen parody shirt there. But most important, thank you all for joining us, watching live and watching post this. But most importantly, keep watching Wrestlers. Get those numbers up. Get those streaming numbers up, so we can
spread the word.
Spread the word.
Yes, spread the word.
But for adfreeshows.com, I am the Blue Meanie. This has been Wrestlers Recap episode 2 and 3. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, have a good day.
See you guys.
Bye.